The Fed has increased interest rates marginally again, this time bringing it to a minimum of 1%. The Fed has also suggested that they are working on a plan to unwind their balance sheet, which has ballooned to nearly $5 trillion. Is there any possible way that completing this task will not destroy the financial system? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we are going to look at the Fed. I want to look at China. I want to look at a whole bunch of issues. So let's begin right here with the Fed. It's important. People have been tracking the progress of the Fed over the years, and it took them an extremely long time just to get the interest rates to rise up to this point. Now, when we look at the actions of the Fed, we need to understand that they affect not just what happens within the US, but the entire world. They are extremely important. In fact, every word that comes out of their mouth is very, very critical to the markets. Fed hikes interest rates despite declining inflation, plan for balance sheet reduction. And I think that's more important than the interest rates right now, because we have this crutch that's in the system, a $4.5 trillion crutch that is in the system at this time. It is supporting it. The worst of the worst garbage has been purchased by the central bank with the hope that at some point they'd be able to sell it back like a garage sale where people would come in and pick up the pieces. I don't know what's going to happen exactly with that, because essentially they're letting it run out, all that garbage that they bought, and then somebody else would come onto the market and pick it up. And I do believe that it could happen. I mean, look, people are buying negative interest rate bonds. It just seems like a ridiculous proposition, but we're in a topsy-turvy world. So right here, the point that I want to make with this is that should the Federal Reserve begin this unwinding process, what I do believe is that this could very well collapse the market. Now, they're going to do so at a slow rate, and they suggest, it's going to take a few years. They're always too slow, they begin too late, and they simply take too long to do everything. I don't know if they're going to actually reduce by the, I think it was $2 trillion. I don't know if that's going to happen, and I don't know how long it's going to take. All I know is that globally, we are seeing $1.5 trillion just this year alone being printed by central banks. So there's no shortage on a global level, and they should be reducing their balance sheet. They should have done that they should have never have had this happen, but here we are. Anyway, so we'll see what happens with this. We'll see if they continue to increase interest rates, and when exactly are they going to begin this unwinding policy. This article here, I'm not going to scroll through the whole thing, but essentially what it says is that the rich and powerful in China have been disappearing. Very strange what has happened. We're talking about big people. We're talking about billionaires in some cases, and they are throughout, all different sectors. Very strange what is happening here. I don't know exactly, but perhaps China is cleaning house on a few people. I don't know. I really don't know, and I want to know exactly what's going on. I'm going to keep my eyes on it, but the fact that it happened, I wanted to bring it to you. We look at what has happened in Greece as let's say a crystal ball for other countries. The austerity measures, extremely important, because that's how you crush an economy permanently. You don't want to crush the economy and then have it come back a few years later. You want to permanently destroy the nation, and you could do that with the austerity measures. Now, not austerity like, for example, if you cut military spending in the US, that would be seen as austerity. No, I'm talking about everything that has been going on. People are really suffering right now at a time when they need some serious help. And unfortunately, look at what money is spent on. It's always going to the worst things. IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde to propose approval in the principle of a new agreement. So what are they talking about here? Well, there's a term that they use a lot, and that is reforms, in this case policy reforms. Staff level agreement followed by supportive legislation from the Greek Parliament, progress on debt relief. Although, when it goes on here, the IMF is the one dictating the policy here, the Troika, with the EU, the IMF calling the shots. It's not the government which really is able to do anything. But look at what the IMF has done. Look at the damage they have caused in Greece already, and they have done so in other countries as well. It doesn't seem to be a very good idea to let them have any say in anything. But of course, that's the way this works. The technocratic elite are the ones who control. Now, what is going to happen in Greece, if you haven't been following me here on the channel before, essentially what's happening is the seizure of assets. And that is happening with the different what I would call like precious assets. So you can see the airports, the streets, the infrastructure in general is being sold off to the highest bidder. And in fact, those highest bidders are buying them for pennies on the dollar. So this is not a good thing for the future, I assure you. But of course, it will continue. Greece has wrapped up a deal with the creditors on details of reforms, there's that word again, to unlock the next disbursement of the 86 billion in the bailout program. They're cheering, saying this is a great thing. But what's happening? Fresh cuts in pensions. This pisses a lot of people off. Look how many videos I have done about pension cuts. And what part of the world are they in? Everywhere. Pension cuts are occurring everywhere. Sure, some cases to a small degree. But look at Greece as the perfect example. When you cut pensions, people take to the streets. That's just the way it is. They can't handle it. They are suffering as it is. And then you cut the pensions, they're going to lose it. And that's what happened here. But it's going to occur everywhere. And that's just the way it is. Look at this. One of the countries which has been exporting more over the past few years to such a high degree is the US. And I find that interesting. But if they stop exporting that oil, should there be some, issues with Saudi Arabia or another country, they can, in fact, just use their own oil. And I hope that they do so. I think that's a great idea. I don't necessarily understand why a country would want to export their oil when they could simply buy it from themselves. I know there's a lot that goes on beyond that, but it doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. You want to be as self-sufficient as possible as an individual, but of course that applies to a nation as well. This right here is right from the Nike website. And essentially what they said was that they want to make Nike better. They want to have a way to increase productivity. And the best way to increase productivity is to fire a hell of a lot of people. So in this case, what Nike is doing is firing 2% of the global workforce. And 2% may not seem like much, but when you realize how many employees Nike has, 2% of their workforce is very serious. So here it is, another company yet again firing a lot of people. Billionaires are stockpiling land that could be used in the apocalypse. Here's where they're going. And essentially what this is a whole article about different people who are buying massive swaths of land. And I just wanted to show you this because the elite seem to know something that the majority doesn't. And a lot of people don't want to even think about this, but it just seems to be that that's the case. They're buying large land, they're buying farmland, they're buying bunkers, and that seems to be the trend. Would you get your travel card implanted into your hand? Swedish commuters raise concerns over security and privacy by using microchips to pay for their journey. Very strange what's going on here in Sweden. They have the cashless society, which is growing to such a massive degree right now. There's barely any cash. And you also have this microchip implanting, and it seems that they're going ahead with an opt-in policy at the beginning. People think it's cool, people think it's trendy, and they get on with it. And I think it's fine if you want to do that. Of course, the problem lies when it becomes mandatory, or it's not necessarily mandatory, but they force you into it. So let's just say, well, you don't need to get your kid microchipped, but then they can't go to the public school. So then a lot of parents would say, well, I guess I'll put the microchip in him as long as it doesn't hurt him. And they just give in. That's the way they do it. They don't necessarily have to make it mandatory. They just make your life extremely difficult. And most people would just give in. And last but not least, I just wanted to show you this for those who didn't see this. Dennis Rodman, who has become the unofficial ambassador to North Korea, gave the Trump book, The Art of the Deal. And he gave that to this individual. I believe he was like the head of sports or the ambassador of sports or something like this. And he was meeting with Dennis Rodman. Of course, the gift is supposed to be for the supreme leader. And I thought it was interesting, to say the least, how this is all going ahead. I hope that cooler heads will prevail in this situation with everything what's happening with North Korea. That brings in the tensions of China as well. There's the South China Sea debate. I mean, there's so much going on, and we just need things to calm down. That's what we need right now at this time. That's all for today. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Of course, if you found this video informative, I know you will find my books, The Money GPS, and my new release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. Remember that the new book is about self-sufficiency, getting out of the system in what I call the Money GPS strategy. My first book is about the 4 asset classes and how to profit from them. So you can look through the book at Amazon. The link is in the description. Take care.